So the bending when we walk, when we do what this video's title is explaining, right? The anatomy example of lifting feet above the grass or lifting feet over the grass, the 28th of June, 2026, in the Image Clothing Company's main site here, right? Spoken by me, Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is a permanent, lifelong example, right? I'll be leading this my entire life, and this is the point. This is what we have to do, is be able to lift our feet above, well, grass, but anything at all that's just natural, uneven texture to the natural earth, without compensation throughout the body. So the knees and the ankles, okay, are where the bend is coming from. The lever of the foot, the lever of the lower leg, the lever of the upper leg, all this bending is coming just naturally if we keep everything supported throughout the body, and then we can lift our feet above the grass. And so watch my hips stay just level, right, as I walk. And watch my feet stay in line as I walk. You notice my hips aren't moving, they're not going up and down, left to right, and they're not going forward or back, right, anterior or posterior. Everything's just staying solid and stable, and the bending is coming from my knees and my ankles. And you notice I can lift my feet up a lot higher, and everything above still stays neutral. If I can have that natural bend in my knees and my ankles. And this is how we just naturally walk. This is an exaggerated height of lifting my feet up. But the point is, a lot of people have a really hard time being able to just naturally lift their feet up over things without compensation through parts of their body, like the hips moving, which move the spine that connects down into the hips, which comes up and moves the shoulders that connect into the spine, and then out to the fingertips, and then the head's on top of the spine, and so it changes. If we try to step over something and the feet aren't working properly, and the body compensates just trying to get the feet up off the ground so we don't stub our toe and trip, right? There you go. The anatomy example of lifting feet above the grass or over the grass, you have to be able to lift your feet up enough to where you could just clear things without tripping. But it will never be okay physically for your body to have that come from things like this. With the hips moving, and the spine moving, and the shoulders, and the head, and everything, and the jaw stabilizing all of this, it's always going to have to come from the natural bends of the ankles and the knees, and everything else just stays very solid and supported. And so this only happens if the feet can track in line straight forward, the only way the bones are shaped, and just rolling off the ends of our different length 5 toes evenly, because the hinge joints of the knees and the ankles are just going to bend the way the bones are connected, which is just straight forward. And so if you start with your feet pointing out, pronation and external rotation at the feet, everything through the body is already changed. An anterior pelvis, knees are collapsing in, the feet are pointing out, and so you're only going off your big toe basically, instead of evenly off the ends of all 5 of your toes. One toe is trying to do the work of 5 when the feet point out, and then you try to lift your toes up, and it can't happen unless your hips change, just to not trip over something, like the example here of just stepping over the grass, right? So I have my hands on my hips so you can just see that they're staying level. They're not bobbing up side to side, and they're not going anterior when I try to lift my leg, because if you can't lift your ankle, you'll have to get the motion from your hips. If you try to step and your ankle won't lift, your hips will, right? You can lift your ankle and step over something, but if you can't, changing your pelvis lifts the whole leg, but it also changes the whole activation of the support through the body as well. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of depth of anatomy explanation I could give in this, but I want to just give mostly a visual and fairly thorough but relatively simple to understand explanation on the big focus is the knees need to fully bend, the ankles need to fully bend, and then they can do their job properly, and then everything else can do its job properly. But we have to be able to lift our feet up. You see a lot of people walking and they just kind of like scuff their feet. Notice how my whole body's going up and down, my pelvis is moving, up on one side or up on the other side, right? Left to right, the pelvis goes up and down, and the whole body bobs up and down because you're actually using your back and you're using, your pelvis to try to lift your feet up. Truly, when you walk and you just don't really lift your feet very much, and you see people kind of walking and they're bobbing, well, that's because they're not bending. So instead, they're like shifting their whole weight to their entire body, and like almost propelling the motion of each step with the rest of their body, rather than just bending the hinges of their ankles and knees. But if you just can't do it, you can't do it. Meaning if there's just something mechanically blocking you, you try to lift your foot up and you hit your foot on the bottom of your pant cuff, you just can't dorsiflex or lift your foot all the way up. Or if the top of your feet are just being determined by a weave of a rope and shoelacing, that's just not the only way the feet bones connect and just can point straight forward. We do have different length 5 toes within this universal human design. Your body can be different if it is, but it's a very small specific percentile of difference that we address where we do. But I mean, the human being designed in the image of God, it's just what it is. And the feet need to always point straight forward. You just follow the bones up the body, because you'll never be able to bend your ankle if the bones just aren't pointing straight forward. That's when the pelvis gets involved, and now we're just kind of dragging our feet, just barely lifting them off the ground. And that's why I've titled this like this and shown it in the grass, right? The anatomy example of lifting feet above the grass or lifting feet over the grass. It's because you're only going to be able to do it without compensation through the body by just having the natural bends in the ankles and the knees. Because if you don't, then that's when you have the compensation, right? So, I mean, because I can stand here and I can step as if I'm stepping over something like 2 feet tall, and nothing in my body above my hips will change. It's just the bends in my feet and in my ankles and my knees. This is the same thing as walking right here. It's just exaggerated, right? But a lot of people are in a pattern where what they'll have is their feet are already sticking out and their pelvis is already anterior, their knees are collapsed in, and their shoulders are forward. It's just because everything is connected in the whole body, and so it's all just compensating unnaturally for just the position of the feet up, or the position of the pelvis down, and anything in between. The body's just a kinetic chain. All the bones are connected. Anywhere any of the body goes, all of it comes. So it's got to do what it can if something's in the way. Anyway, yeah, I mean, just not being able to lift the feet up just straight forward, or point the feet down as well, though. It's just straight forward. Just determined by the bones pointing the direction we're trying to walk. And then the pelvis not being able to just stay neutral. Okay, what's going to happen is you just can't lift your feet up. And so people stub their toes, people scuff their feet all the time, but people have a lot of back pain, neck pain, hip pain, knee pain. And it's coming from all the things it's coming from. But just to make the point clear, of where it's coming from, I guess, is actually the point of the video, right? Really, I mean, leading us into why we are in the Image Clothing Company, more than just discussing how the human being walks. How do we fix it? How do you lift your feet up naturally? Well, that's the thing. The importance of the proper height socks, the importance of the proper height shoe. In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, zero drop, the term in any brand of shoe. Pant cuffs and keeping them off the top of the feet. Not having socks rotating your lower legs to where your feet just can't track in line anyway. Okay. All of these things down at the feet, and then up at the hips, just keeping pants above the hips at that natural waist where we bend side to side at the spine. That's another point. If your pants are just on your hips, you can't lift your feet up because your hips are altered, traveling down to your feet, and your hips are already going to be in an anterior position, which now your feet are trying to compensate for your hips, and it just can't happen. The body only can possibly work how the bones are shaped and lengthed and connected. So clothing, right? In the Image Clothing Company, so much thorough explanation is what we give. Okay, so check it out. But what I'm saying is, when you walk, don't walk lazy. Always pick your feet up. Always track your bones directly in line. And if you track your bones directly in line straight forward, you can't possibly walk without actually lifting your feet up proper. If your feet point out, you can kind of like drag them across the ground, and you've just got all this compensation happening. It's very unhealthy, but you're able to actually get the feet to move without hitting the ground if they stick out, because when the feet stick out, the pelvis compensates for the motion. And so you can get the motion somewhere, but it's damaging everything. You know, your back and your hips, your knees are now on a bad angle, and your ankles are on a very bad angle. There's just only one way the bones point forward, okay? So just always keeping the feet pointing forward requires you to have to lift your feet up, or else you just trip, right? Like if you don't lift your feet up. So anyway, that's the thing, is you just have to lace your shoes truly with the only way you can weave a rope across the top of the feet to not alter the shape of the feet, which is what we title in the Image Clothing Company shoelace technique. It'll never change, but we didn't decide it. We didn't come up with it, right? I mean, not really. It's just a weave of a rope. But there you go, right? So anyway, yeah, lifting the feet above the grass, though, you have to, otherwise you're changing your pelvis, okay? But here's the thing, actually, is I can be, let me just, anyway, that's probably all we say in this video, actually. But just the anatomy, it's the same here as it is here. See, my feet can come up and go down no matter where I am. Wow, okay, from top to bottom, all the way extended or all the way bent at the ankles and the knees, and everything above the hips still stays stable as long as the body's just tracking in line. It's just you're pointing your feet the direction you're going, but you just need to make sure there's nothing restricting the bends of your knees and your ankles. So you're not gonna know, maybe, right? I didn't until I did, to keep your pant cuffs just out of the way, so you're not limiting some of that lifting of the foot and collapsing the feet arches anyway, just from pant cuffs, the bottom of the pants, you know. Yeah, so there you go, right? Removing certain things in clothing, you know, removing all tags from clothing, no stretch in clothing. These things only exist as of tens of years ago from today's date, the 28th of June, 2026. So under In the Image Clothing Company's main site here, we just discuss what's needed, and there's no opinion or preference to it. You know, there's this universal human design, and the bones all connect the same way. So Anyway, we talk about where clothing sits very clearly under In the Image Clothing Company. Check it out anywhere you can find our 5-word company name, no spaces between the 5 words. Okay, In the Image Clothing Company.